It's not just yes, I see, thank you. Mr. Rimmer, I believe you describe yourself as a freelance road haulier.
Yeah.
But you were an employee for a time in 1972.
Was I?
Weren't you? For the Fulster Warehouse Group.
Yeah.
Yes, one of whose subsidiaries is the Fulster Carafe Wine Company, who dismissed you from their employ.
That's not true, I left. Any road, what the hell's that got to do with this case?
Mr. Parsons, I think it would help us if you could explain the relevance of this line of questioning.
My learned friend has sought to establish from this invoice of the Fulster Carafe Wine Company some proof of both my client's capacity for alcohol and Mr. Rimmer's financial support.
Yes.
However, it will be seen in closer inspection that this is, in fact, a combined invoice delivery note. Now, I understand from certain sources that by a manipulation of the carbon copy in the documentation, one load of wine may be drawn from the warehouse and a smaller amount invoiced.
Look here, you can't accuse me of...
Quiet, Mr. Rimmer! I shan't warn you again.
With respect, my lord, whatever the rights or wrongs of this, Mr. Rimmer is not on trial today.
Yes. What are you trying to establish from this witness?
Well, whether the wine, though delivered to her address, was in fact for Mrs. Robertson, or whether it was for redistribution.
Yes, I think it would be helpful to know that, but your client did not give that explanation.
Oh, that is true, my lord. I can recall her if you desire.
Oh, no. Let's get on.
Yes, thank you, my lord. Now, was the wine for Mrs. Robertson?
Some of it was.
Yes, how much?
I got a special discount. It was all above board.
What was?
Reselling it.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Rimmer. No further questions, my lord.
Some of the wine was for Mrs. Robertson.
Yeah.
There were always plenty of crates in the flat.
Well, sometimes, yeah.
She could help herself when she wanted to.
She could, yeah. But, I mean, that doesn't make her a...
Alcoholic?
No.
Now, Mr. Rimmer, you paid £2.50 a week rent in August and September of 1972 for your corner.
Yeah.
Did you have a rent book?
No.
No?
No. Well, what do you think she was, a landlady?
Wasn't she? Mr. Rimmer?
Oh, well, yeah, but... Well, what I mean to say is... Well, you know what I mean.
I don't know what you mean, Mr. Rimmer.
Well, you see, we weren't, you know, formal like that. Not formal.
No, you weren't formal like that. No, in fact, you were very informal indeed. Intimate, weren't you?
Well, you hear her say that.
Never mind what she said. You were intimate with her.
On and off, yeah.
And how often would on and off be?
Yeah, look, this is going a bit far, isn't it? I come here in the interest of justice and he start... Do I have to answer that?
I'm afraid you do, Mr. Rimmer.
Once a week.
Suddenly you sound very positive.
Fridays. Being usually away in the middle of the week, it'd be a case of back home, down the boozer, and once a week. Fridays.
September the 15th, 1972 was a Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
But you didn't go to the boozer that evening, did you?
Ah. She was very ill that evening.
Was she?
Raging temperature.
Did you measure it?
Eh? Well, no. I mean, she was hot, you know, feverish. Particularly after he'd stuck his
Did you
dirty...
call a doctor?
No.
When she was so ill? Mr. Rimmer, are you the kind of man who, when he's walked up a hill, describes it in the boozer afterwards as climbing a mountain?
What's all that mean?
You're not a lorry driver. You have to be a freelance road haulier.
I am.
You're the kind of man who only has to see two people arguing in a bedroom to find the woman's nightdress suddenly dramatically ripped from top to bottom. The only trouble being that the ripping occurred afterwards in your vivid imagination.
I can see it. I can see it now.
Yes, I know you can see it now, but did you see it then? What colour was it? I understand you can see the tear, but not the material that was torn. Now, Mr. Rimmer, your rent... £2.50 isn't a very large weekly rent for one room, is it?
Part of a room.
Oh, Ted's Corner, yes, I'm sorry, I forgot. Well, you had use of the flat.
Well, yeah, but when you say use of the flat, of course I use the lavatory.
The bathroom.
Yeah.
The kitchen.
Sometimes.
The bedroom, Mrs. Robertson's bedroom, at least you said on Fridays.
Fridays, yeah, but half the time I wasn't
A bargain, wasn't it, at £2.50? Mr. Rimmer, you're a generous man.
Eh?
Are you a generous man?
Suppose it's the next man, yeah.
You wouldn't see two children go without.
Well, no.
You bought presents for them, you say?
Just odd things. a coat, you know, nothing regular. I mean, that's not support. Any human being wouldn't
How
let...
much a week would that amount to?
Don't add things like that up. You just stick your hand in your pocket.
You don't add things up like that, oh no. Eating arrangements, where did you eat?
In the kitchen.
With the family?
When I was there, it was the only place to eat.
And the food you ate, did that come out of the £2.50?
Look, you trying to make out I took the bread out of their mouths, I paid my whack.
But what exactly was your whack, Mr. Rimmer? You wouldn't know if what you were eating came out of your own money or out of the Social Security benefit, would you? Because it was all so intermingled, wasn't it? As things must be in a family unit, is that not right? You told me you had no rent book.
I didn't.
Is that in fact because there was no rent? Because your relationship was much deeper than that of landlady and tenant, much more nearly that of husband and wife.
That's rubbish.
Is it? You eat at the same table, you share expenses, you share the same bed, at least on Fridays, you said. Well, you can appreciate, can you not, that an observer might well think that you were living together as man and wife. And you can appreciate that if you seem to be enjoying the benefits and comforts of a common home, it would be reasonable of that observer to think that you should support that home and not draw money from the state.
I don't know what a reasonable observer would think.
That's very obvious.
How many bloody women are you expecting me to support? I wasn't there half the time, 3/4. I keep trying to tell you, there's my ex-wife, there's the maintenance on her and the kid, there's London.
Go on, Mr. Rimmer.
Well, I have a similar little corner in London, you see.
Another corner?
Yeah. Well, when you're on the lorries, you're half the time in one place, half the time in another. Stands to reason that you... What do you expect a man to do? Cohabitation and all the rest of that rhubarb. Annie was my weekend. We're good friends. Good friends. I keep trying to tell you I was away more often than I was there. He knew that. He just wanted to get me out. There was only one reason why he wrote that report.
I've no more questions, my lord.
No re-examination, my lord.
You may leave the witness box.
Thank you, my lord.
Thank you, Mr. Rimmer.
That concludes the case for the plaintiff, my lord.
Lord, one of my witnesses, Mr. Summers, has an agent engagement elsewhere, and with your permission, I'd like to call him before my client.
Mr. Parsons.
No, I have no objections, my lord.
You are Malcolm Gerald Summers of Palace Terrace, Fulchester?
I am.
You are the manager of the Department of Health and Social Security office in Rayburn Road, Fulchester.
Yes,
As his superior, how did you regard Mr. Ash's work?
very highly.
You had confidence in his judgment when he filed a cohabitation report on Mrs. Robertson on the 18th of September 1972.
Absolutely. The report didn't surprise me in the least. Big Annie, Mrs. Robertson, was well known to us. She had always tended to flout her relationship with Rimmer.
Now, what exactly do you mean by flout, Mr. Summers?
Well, my lord, for instance, once she came to Rayburn Road.
When?
Oh, in the summer of 1972. I'm sorry, I can't be more precise. She was appealing on behalf of some woman who had her book removed for cohabitation. She was always appealing on behalf of someone or other. And she said...
To you?
Yes, my lord. She said, why don't you pick on someone your own size? Because you daren't, dare you?
What did you take that to mean?
It seemed to me, my lord, that she was throwing down the gauntlet. There were other claimants there, and I got the impression she was saying, if you make enough noise, the DHSS daren't take your book away.
That was your impression.
Yes.
Yes, I suppose it's a possible interpretation, yes, Mr.
I'm obliged, my lord. Is there any truth in that, Mr. Summers, that if you make enough noise, the DHSS doesn't take action?
We decide each case on the facts, and the facts alone.
Did Mr. Ash's report strike you as in any way unusual?
Well, it was a little forceful, perhaps, but no, I wouldn't describe it as being unusual.
On the way to being an alcoholic?
That sort of statement is not unfamiliar in this sort of report, unfortunately.
Mentally unstable, a manic-depressive sort of person with violent mood changes?
Well, that is rather strongly expressed, perhaps, but I wouldn't say it was untrue. You see, we have to make assessments not only on people's needs, but also on what sort of people they are. Now, unfortunately, some people are unstable. They do lie. They do claim money illegally, but this is public money. It is our duty to see that this money is rightfully disposed of.
Your duty, yes. And it was Mr. Ash's duty to submit this report to you.
Indeed it was.
Thank you.
Mr. Summers, are you aware that the Social Security Act 1966 does not define cohabitation?
Of course.
So the decision as to whether a man and woman are living together as husband and wife is largely at your discretion.
No, of course it isn't.
No, when there's nothing laid down.
There are plenty of precedents.
Precedents?
The Supplementary Benefits Commission has laid down certain guidelines. Now, living together becomes cohabitation when a certain number of factors accumulate. Is there a common home? How long has the partnership lasted? Is there a child by it? Do they share the same bedroom, the same meal table, or the same name?
Yes, however, if we look at the Supplementary Benefits
Well,
Handbook on
fascinating
page
though
9
this technical exploration may be, is it germane to the case?
How is it germane, Mr. Parsons?
Oh, my lord, Mr. Summers has laid great stress on the normality of the defendant's report, giving the impression it's the sort of thing that happens every day, whereas it is part of my client's case that a normal report may be defamatory.
My client can't be held responsible for that.
Are you trying to assert that the system itself is on trial here?
Oh, no, my lord, but I'm most concerned that the jury shouldn't think it beyond criticism. There's a great deal of well-informed opinion in this country that believes that the cohabitation rule is bad and unworkable, a fact that I believe that this case stresses.
My lord, there are wide social and political issues here which are not the concern of this court, and in any case these reports are privileged.
Yes, I quite agree. I can't allow you to take this any further. This is not a forum for public debate.
Your lordship pleases. Now, Mr. Summers, you weren't surprised when you read Mr. Ash's report.
No, I wasn't.
No, it confirmed what you already thought.
Well, yes.
So you accepted it without question.
I question everything.
Of course. That's a standard we all try and set ourselves. But did you question anything in this report?
Well, you can't check everything.
Did you check anything?
Mr. Ash is a man of integrity. I took his word at the time, and, well, I still do.
Did you check anything?
Well, you only check things like that when you're
Answer counsel's question, Mr. Summers.
No.
Thank you. Were there no special investigators used in this case?
Well, they're only necessary when the man claims to be living apart from the woman. Well, in this case, they weren't necessary. We had a strong case, the facts were there, and I knew the claimant concerned.
Oh, yes, you did, didn't you? You knew Mrs. Robertson personally.
Yes.
Would you prefer to describe her as a thorn in your flesh?
It is a very fair description, yes.
Yes, she made life difficult for you.
She was not an easy client.
Yes, in her brushes with you, Mrs. Robertson was mostly campaigning for someone else there, wasn't she?
Oh, she interfered.
Yes, Mr. Summers?
She mostly spoke on behalf of other people, yes.
Yes. So when her own case came up in Mr. Ash's report, was not your consideration of it prejudiced and biased? Yes. Well, perhaps you'll now answer the question.
Well, personal feelings don't enter into it. Each case is decided on its merits, on the facts.
I see. And on your character assessments of your clients.
Yes.
Mr. Summers, what are the medically recognized stages of alcoholism?
Well, how is that relevant?
You must answer counsel's questions, Mr.
Well, sorry, but I can't answer it. I don't know.
Yes, well, what are the generally recognized symptoms from which one would conclude if a person was suffering from manic depressive psychosis?
That's ridiculous. I don't know.
Yes, well, do any of your staff receive psychiatric training?
Well, no, but...
No, thank you. No further questions, Mr. Summers.
I've no re-examination, my lord.
You may leave the witness box, Mr. Summers. Thank you for attending.
I call the defendant Stephen Ash. You are Stephen Ash of 8 Netherbridge Street, Fulchester.
Yes.
You work as a social security officer for the Department of Health and Social Security in Rayburn Road, Fulchester.
Well, I'm under suspension.
I see. Now, Mr. Ash, when did you first visit Mrs. Robertson?
At the beginning of January 1972, January the 3rd.
And what was the reason for this particular visit?
She'd sent in a spurious BO40, which she'd filled up with...
One moment. What was spurious?
BO40 clothing allowance form for internal use only, my lord. The Claimants' Union and like-minded bodies somehow obtain copies and send them in.
And that is wrong, is it?
Oh, quite wrong procedure, yes. We have to judge what they need.
I see, Mr. Fry.
Can you explain exactly what this particular form is for?
If the person under benefit or dependent has inadequate clothing, then he or she may claim to make up such deficiencies. BO40 lists the minimum clothing it is felt desirable for a person to have. For instance, a boy should have jacket or wind cheater, 1, trousers, 2 pairs, socks or stockings, 3 pairs.
Thank you. And you'd received such a form from Mrs. Robertson?
A clothes shop, as we term it. Oh, she'd filled everything in. I think she was trying me out. New man on the job, see what we can get out of it.
What did she get out of you?
Pair of knickers for the girl, undervest for the boy.
What was her reaction?
Very verbal.
Abusive?
Yes.
Did anything else come up at this first meeting?
Well, cohabitation.
You saw something that made you suspect this?
There was a donkey jacket on the peg behind the door. A pair of men's carpet slippers, well worn. Coupons saved from a small cigar packet. She smoked cigarettes.
Did you confront her with this?
I asked her if she understood what cohabitation meant. She said, I understand a bloody sight more about it than you do. And then she threatened me with a bottle. She said if I didn't get out, she'd brain me with it.
And what did you do?
Well, I talked to her. Her attack was a cry for help.
Mr. Ash, surely this is a rather unusual way of asking for help.
Well, she was in a very disturbed state. She had a lot of problems, personal problems, but she blamed them on society. Being a representative of that society, she attacked me. But I was only the outlet.
Ah, yeah. Yes, I think I see what you mean. You did not regard this attack as personal.
That's right, my lord.
Yes, Mr. King.
Not, did your talking to Mrs. Robertson do any good?
No, she was very rigid in her views.
You followed up your suspicions about cohabitation?
Oh, yes, I met Mr. Rimmer. They didn't deny he was staying there part of the week, but then he started classifying himself as a lodger. So I made out a fresh A1114.
What's that?
What?
A claimant form for benefit. And I reduced the benefit by £2.50, the amount of the alleged rent.
When was that?
Soon after, beginning of February.
Did you believe that Rimmer was the lodger?
No, I thought they were cohabiting then.
And why didn't you take action at that time?
I wasn't sure. See, we don't like taking people's books away, at least I don't. I've never done it unless I was absolutely sure that the rules were being broken. Besides, I thought that the relationship between Mrs. Robertson and Mr. Rimmer was likely to break up at any moment.
In which case, withdrawing the book would have been irrelevant.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Ash, would you look at your file on Mrs. Robertson, Form A6M? This is page 4 of the bundle. Not, would you be kind enough to read out some of the headings over the boxes you're required to tick when you're assessing a client?
Chronic illness, mental health doubtful, child neglect.
Thank you. Now,
special...
what do you regard as the purpose of these boxes?
Well, the department...
No, I mean, what do you think their purpose is?
Well, they're important features of the claimant. They describe what she is. Any special problems for us? Needs, yes. What they need.
Needs. In other words, they're there for the benefit of the...
Yes, I'm sure you're not going to put words into your client's mouth, Mr. Fry.
I think he's approached the point, Lord.
Approached, but not yet reached, I think.
As your lordship pleases. Why did you put a tick through mental health doubtful?
Because it was. Is.
But on what grounds did you make this judgment?
On what I saw. On her abnormal behaviour patterns. I'll give you an example. That first time when she came for me with a bottle, well, I talked her out of it. From screaming at me, she suddenly dropped the bottle and began laughing hysterically. Violent changes of mood. Well, you've seen her here.
Well on the way to being an alcoholic?
Well, crates of wine in the flat always.
It has been suggested that they were for redistribution.
Maybe. But Rimmer let her take what she wanted. She was a different person when he was about. He encouraged her to drink. She'd had a lot to drink on that Friday evening.
September the 15th we're talking
yes.
about. What made you aware of that?
Her manner. Empty bottle in the waste bin, half-empty bottle on the table.
You remember the events of that evening clearly.
Oh, yes, I do.
And did you notify her that you were going to call?
Yes, I sent her the usual notice. Proposed to visit afternoon of the 15th.
But do you keep copies of these notices?
Oh, no, it's just a little slip, you know, like a compliment slip.
Yes, I see. And what was the purpose of this visit?
To inform her that I was reporting her as a cohabitation case.
And what had brought you to this decision?
During the preceding 2 months, Rimmer had been living more or less permanently at Brent Gardens. I noticed
This was when
that...
he was working for the Fulchester Carafe Wine Company.
Yes. I noticed that blankets and sheets, previously kept in the folding portion of the picture-up bed in the living room, were no longer present. In the bedroom, there were signs that 2 people were sleeping there regularly. Ashtrays on each side of the bed, 2 pillows, soil patches on each, suggesting regular use.
So you were satisfied that they were living together as man and wife at that stage, and that therefore Mrs. Robertson was drawing benefit illegally?
Oh, yes, yes. I cautioned her, and she said, don't be bloody daft. Well, I gave her the reasons, which I have just given you, and then she took a photograph.
Just one
out of
moment.
the
This is
drawer
document 10, my lord. Did you recognise the child?
Yes, Roger, Mrs. Robertson's son. And then she threw the picture on the table, and she said, if you want evidence, you can find plenty, but you still can't stop my benefit.
What did you infer from that?
Well, that Roger was Mr. Rimmer's son.
Did you regard that as conclusive proof of cohabitation?
Oh, no, but very strong additional evidence.
I wonder why she should give it to you.
Because she was drunk. Because that was exactly the sort of mood she was in, defiant. She thought she was too big for anyone to touch, whatever evidence they had. Well, I picked up the picture, I put it in my briefcase. She went very quiet. I think she must have realized what she'd done. She said, you're not really going to do anything, are you? Well, I asked her if she wanted to write out a statement, which I would include with my report. She didn't say anything. She got up and she went into the bedroom. I followed her to ask her again. She started to open her clothing. She said, come on, you'd better have it if you want it.
Mrs. Robertson maintains that she was joking. Was this your impression?
Oh, no, not at all.
Did you touch her?
No.
What happened then?
Well, as soon as she heard Rimmer enter the flat, she flew at me. She went berserk. And then Rimmer came in, and before I knew what was happening, he got hold of me as if it was me then. And then he threw me outside, on the street.
When did you write your report, Mr. Ash?
Monday.
Can you recollect your frame of mind when you wrote it?
Yes. I was sorry about it, but quite calm, you know. We do calm down quick. You get the practice. We get a lot of hostility.
Did you try to make an objective report, which it was your duty to do?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did.
And you believed the statements in it to be true?
They were true. Absolutely true.
Thank you.
The case of Robertson versus Ash will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court.